Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. Today is the day. Today is the day. We are starting our September book club pick, and of course you guys know what it is already because hopefully if you're watching this you've already read it. It is Threads That Bind. So if you have not joined us for one of our book club videos yet, this is kind of how it works. We are the Lazy Book Club. We pick a book every month, normally a couple months in advance, so you guys can get the book, you guys can get ready for it, decide if you want to read it, if you don't want to read it. And then it's kind of up to you guys when you read it. Like, you don't have to read it in that month. You can wait however long you want. You can wait years. You can wait years and come back and watch this as long as YouTube is, still a thing. That's kind of the point. It is the Lazy Book Club because you don't need to rush to read it. I am the only one who has to rush to read it. I have to read the book by the end of the month, and I basically just post a full recap, full spoilers, full everything at the end of each month. Normally either the last week of the month or, depending on how my schedule is, the first week of the next month, and you just take your time reading it and get to the video whenever you want. Then basically you watch the video, I kind of talk about what I thought about it, any plot holes, anything I didn't like about it, anything I liked about it, what I kind of thought about the thing, and then you guys comment down below about your whole spoilery comments, etc., and we kind of talk about it in the comments. And I love it. It's so much fun. And so for September, you guys chose Threads That Bind, which is really exciting because I really wanted to read this one. It is a relatively short fantasy book that is written by a Greek author about Greek retelling things, which is really, really cool. And it sounds really good. And I also have 2 copies of it. This is my Fairy Loot edition. I did reverse the dust jacket. This is the back of the dust jacket. It's so pretty. It's so pretty. I love it. It's just got this like galaxy feel to it. It's really cool. And then we have the more traditional, the Fates on the front, and it just looks really, really cool from Alcrate. I love this one. I love both of them. Both of them are really, really cool. I'm curious which one fits the story better. This one's got more of a traditional feel to it. This one's almost got like a sci-fi look to it, which doesn't seem particularly correct, but I don't know. This might have something to do with like space or the universe. Maybe it's a universe thing. That could be interesting. Yeah, so we are going to get into reading this. At this point, if you have not read the book, I would not advise moving forward because I give updates normally throughout the whole book. So it is, I mean, full spoilers, full talking about the story and what I thought about things that happened in it. And it's probably not going to make a lot of sense if you haven't read it because I'm not going to be explaining the full story. It's just stuff that happened in the story. So I would highly advise go read the book first and then come back and watch the rest of the video. But otherwise, if you are here, if you have read the book, if you are ready to look at what happens in it and the questions that I have for you guys, then we are moving right along into the updates. And I hope you guys enjoyed the book. I hope I enjoyed the book. And let's move on to the spoiler section of the vlog. I don't know if I've ever been so mad in my entire life. My video recording for both my update for this and an entire hour-long video for an unboxing that is all undone behind me that I'm going to redo, didn't record the video for some reason. It had an error loading both of them. I don't know why. It's an iPhone. It shouldn't do that. So it plays some of the audio, none of the video, nothing. So I'm gonna have to redo everything. I'm gonna redo everything, and I'm ready to break every single item in my house right now. Because that's all I've been doing for the past hour and a half is working on these videos and these clips. Having a great time, guys. I'm having such a great time. So anyway, as I said in the previous clip that you guys are never going to see because it doesn't exist, I have read the first 2 chapters of Threads That Bind. Yay. Yay me. This is such a more salty clip than the first one because I'm just so mad. But I have to redo it because I can't continue reading until I do this because I want to give you my initial thoughts on it. So anyway, I don't even know like how to say, because I feel like the first clip that I did was so good. It was so like all encompassing about how I felt, and now I'm just like, but yeah, I love it. That's basically what I say in the first clip. I love it. I think the writing style is really smart. It has drawn me in right away. I even gave a list of things that I thought were so good. So let me see if I can remember the list. I feel like this writing is really, really good because the author was able to tell me so many things in the first 2 chapters. I know the backstory, basically. I understand a big part of the magic system. I understand the different world that they're in compared to us. I understand the relationship between the sisters that we have going on. I understand a lot of the main character's personality already. There's a very big personality already. I understand what a major conflict is gonna be. I understand who like the romance is going to be without it being like insta-lovey, which is amazing. And there was a bunch of other things, but so good. Within 2 chapters, if you can tell me that many things, amazing, amazing. And I am just so in it already. I love the imagery that we already had with the lost city of Atlanta, whatever, and how we go up to this apartment complex and there's like a half sunken theater, and it's not info dumpy at all. We had like this really cool action sequence where you already kind of learn who she is, what kind of person she's going to be, what she's going to do later in the story, and how it's kind of gotten her involved, who she is. And it gave us a glimpse of who like the villain is and why we don't understand them fully, but what's actually going on. And it's kind of already introduced this little mystery. And then we had the insta love, but not insta love. Like it already gave you the romance because her fate thread, whatever, connected to him, and she's like, not right now, which I love. I loved that. I love that she was like, no thanks. No thanks. So like you already know like the romance, kind of, because obviously I guess it could change, but you kind of know the romance, but it's not an insta love way, so you kind of are like, oh, this is cool, this is neat, this is interesting. Yeah, I'm just kind of obsessed with it, like absolutely obsessed with it, and I cannot wait to continue reading it. And that's pretty much all I have to say. I don't know how I'm gonna update this. I feel like I'm just gonna update as important information comes through, because I feel like the other books that I've read I had a good idea of where I was updating, and this one I don't. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna update as I feel necessary, but I'm enjoying it. I'm reading it on my Kindle. I was able to get a Libby copy from my library, which was amazing, and I was not expecting that. I'm going to be able to read it on Kindle, which is nice because I can bring it around with me. Yeah, that's kind of my little update. I will update you again whenever I feel it necessary, but I'm really excited to continue reading it. Okay, so it is Saturday, the 23rd, I think. I actually meant to say that I started this yesterday. So my original clip is from the 22nd, and I read a little bit yesterday, and then I've pretty much just read all day today. So I just got to part 2. I'm so bad at telling where I am on the screen. I am at part 2. I think, what does it say? 33% in. I feel like I don't have like a ton to talk about. I feel like I've already talked about, I don't know. I feel like this is definitely one of those books that's just very like cut and dry. I don't know exactly what's going on, which is interesting. I will try to be succinct in what I'm talking about. So it started going like downhill a little bit for me, but it's gone back up. So I know I said I was really loving the beginning, and I did. I didn't love that her first thing after meeting the boy, I don't know how to say his name. Is it Edai? Something like that. I'm gonna say Edai. And if you know how to actually pronounce it, let me know like the phonetics down below so I know for future talking about it. I didn't love that they immediately had like a mission together. I really wish they had separated them earlier and then kind of just had him show up places, kind of like what just happened at the end of part 1. I just needed some separation because I like how it was introduced as like her fate thread, but I don't like how it immediately like pushed them together, because it did begin to feel insta-lovey, which I didn't like. And then he got hurt and then separated them, which I liked. I started liking the book significantly more when we were just following Io again and not Io doing stuff with Edai. I like that he kind of popped up at the very end after she was hurt and that he was there for her. So, but I'm also not, I'm uncomfortable because he has a girlfriend. I'm very uncomfortable because he has a girlfriend. I don't like cheating things, so she like gets together with him while he still has a girlfriend. I don't like that. I'm actually kind of hoping that he's not the romance. I'm actually kind of hoping there's like, it's gonna be like her choosing to cut the fate thread and ends up with somebody else that we maybe haven't met yet in the story, because I'm just not vibing right now with the romance. I'm liking everything else. I'm liking her stuff separate from him. I like the action. I like the mystery. The mystery is really cool. I have no idea where it's going. I don't know who these women are. I do think we got a big glimpse just now with the most current Wraith that was attacking the guy who tried to attack her at the betting rings. So I did love that scene because I feel like we definitely got a glimpse of it. And now I'm thinking that potentially the wraiths are being made by the muses. This is the part that's really confusing. There's a lot going on. Like, there's so many different, like, blank-born people. Like, Graceborn was the guy that just died. And then our main character is Moria born. I'm so bad at saying stuff. Then there's like a bunch of other borns, and it's just really confusing to keep straight. So I'm hoping that it's not like super important to remember all of them, because I'm really gonna need to come up with a guide because I cannot keep them straight. But it is doing a good job of, like, they said, oh, he's a Graceborn, he does this as he's doing it. So I'm like, okay, as long as they keep doing that, I'll be able to keep things straight. But if they don't keep doing that, I'm not going to know what's going on and what each power is, etc. So that is the only part that I'm, like, really confused about. And I don't know if they have a guide. I need to look at it, but I need to make my own if there's not one in the book. That's kind of pretty much all I have to say about it. I do think something weird is going on with the muses. They've been brought up briefly, and then it seems like it said that they created the wraiths. The wraith was talking about a group of creators, and the guy started blaming these groups of women. So I'm thinking it's the muses that are making these wraiths to dole out some sort of justice. But we also had this little excerpt about the Furies. Was it the Furies? A group of otherborn military-esque, like police force, that was exterminated. And I'm curious if the muses or a group of people are creating these wraiths as the new Furies. That's what I'm kind of curious if that's what's happening. But I don't know. And I know this is not a standalone, so there is going to be another book. And I'm just curious where we're going to end this one off, and like what mysteries we're going to solve and what mysteries are still going to stand for the rest of the series. But that's kind of how I'm feeling. I like it. I'm nervous about the romance, and romances in young adult fantasy can make or break books for me, which is why I had such a hard time with Divine Rivals. I just did not buy the romance, which I know is crazy because everyone loves that romance. I just didn't buy it and I didn't like it. It felt insta-love to me. I just wasn't a fan of that one. It was just weird. I don't know what it was. So I'm worried about the romance. I am liking this more than Divine Rivals. I'm in it. This is compulsively readable. Like, I cannot put it down, and I was like annoyed that I had to stop reading and give an update because I was like far enough in the book that I was like, I do need to give an update. Like, I actually need to talk about it and not just finish the book. But I have a feeling I'm definitely going to finish it by tomorrow. Like, definitely going to finish it by tomorrow. It is a very, very quick read, and I'm probably going to read the rest of today. So it is possible that I will actually finish it today and have this out relatively early compared to normal. So I'm so proud of myself in my early planning, which is something I'm not very good at when it comes to this. So I'm going to go back to reading. We are starting chapter 13. Yeah, chapter 13, We Aura Sisters. That's the other thing, this sister. I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know. Yeah, I'm curious why the one sister left, Theus? And like what's gonna happen to like bring her back. I assume because Io's like in danger that she's gonna come back and try and help her. I don't know though, so I'm curious. And so yeah, I'm gonna continue reading. It's a lot going on. I am excited to see where the story is going, and it is a very unique story. I am really enjoying this kind of Greek retelling, modern day kind of thing going on. It is really, really cool. Yeah, I finished the book. I love how he said I was gonna update more, and I just finished the book. This is going to be the least amount of updates I've ever done while reading one of these books for one of these reading vlogs. You can tell I have huge bags under my eyes. I actually finished last night at 2 in the morning, and I really was going to like update a very quick like initial thoughts video as I finished it, but it was 2 in the morning and I was exhausted and I wanted to go to bed. So that's not what happened. So instead, here I am, and we are going to talk about what I thought about it, kind of why I didn't stop reading it. Mostly because, number one, it is very, like I said, compulsively readable. It was just a super quick book. A fantasy book under 400 pages is a very quick fantasy book. And also, it was just constantly so action-packed that there really wasn't like a great time to stop. Even between parts 2 and 3, which is where I was going to stop, it was still going. Like it was more of like a cliffhanger almost kind of thing, and you just continued into the story in part 3. There wasn't a natural break like there was between part 1 and part 2, at least in my opinion. That to me, there just wasn't a good point to stop and be like, oh, this is what I'm feeling about. And so I was just like, let me just finish this and talk about it overall, because there's also a lot happening. There's a lot happening. There's a lot of confusing aspects to the book. And I'm gonna get into all of that and things that I liked, things that I didn't like, etc. But first of all, so my rating actually is a 4.25. I actually ended up really, really liking this, especially the end. I did think it dragged a little bit. And again, we're gonna talk about that more fully, but this one was a weird one for me. This one was a weird one. Let's get into my rating and the story and all the things. And I have some questions. And I have some questions going into the next book. So definitely stick around and listen to that. And I want to know what you guys think down below about a lot of these questions that I have and these plot points I'm going to talk about. Okay, so the things that I liked first, the positives. And again, it's funny because I have a lot more things. I have things written down in the I don't like category. I have way more of those than I have in things that I like, but I overall loved the story so much that that's not really taking away from my rating, except for 2 things. There are 2 specific things that are taking away from my rating, but we'll get to them. But it was a 4.25 because it was just a very well constructed story, minus a few things. It was so interesting. It was so different. And again, if you can jam pack a fully developed, for the most part, fantasy story into 340 pages, that's pretty freaking impressive. I do hope that the next book is longer, just because there's a lot to get through. There's a lot to unpack. There's a lot of historical things that I want them to go through that was not done in the first book. So I do hope the second book is longer and goes through a lot more of the unexplained stuff that happened in this one. Number 1, my absolute favorite thing in this, which I thought I would never say because I don't like sister stories generally, I loved the sister relationship. It was so real. It was so, oh my gosh, intense. Like, I feel like most of the drama and most of your character development came when Io was talking to Ava, or Io was talking to Thias, or just talking about them to herself and her relationship with them. It was so interesting, the totally different dynamics between all 3 of them, especially with one sister definitely being like kind of emotionally abusive, not kind of, she was emotionally abusive to the other 2 sisters, and it caused Io to just have this almost broken down emotional response to very specific things, and it was very difficult to watch because it's very real. It's very real, and a lot of people don't realize that the way that they act will make people respond in a certain way. So I don't even think her sister realized the amount of emotional damage that she was actually doing to her sister. And I love exploring that. I loved exploring their relationship, and it was so complicated because she still loved her older sister. She still loved, I think it was Thias. She still loved Thias in such a complicated way, and she was still ready to throw everything away to protect her sister, even though her sister kind of tormented her early on. But that's like that's the difficult part about families, and it's just complicated. It's so complicated, especially when you have a less than stellar relationship with one of them, because it makes everything just so complicated. So I loved that. I thought it was so dynamic. I thought it was so good and interesting how their 3 stories actually intertwined. Going with that, I loved that Io the whole book was fretting over something she did to Thias, and it's why Thias left. And I absolutely love that she actually did something kind of bad, like kind of legitimately morally gray, like fraying her thread to make her leave and then not telling her sister. Probably not telling Ava is probably the worst thing that she could have done in that situation, because we can understand why she frayed the thread and why she had Rosa give her dreams of leaving. You can understand that. Io felt emotionally abused, she felt suffocated, and she was younger. She didn't want to leave Ava, and Thias also spoke badly to Ava, so Io thought she was doing kind of them all a service by making Thias go away, even though Ava definitely did not see it that way. However, I can understand it. You get rid of the toxicity in a toxic situation, and supposedly everyone is happier. And it did seem that way. It seemed that Io was happier. It seemed that Thias was happier. The problem is you send the toxicity somewhere else and they potentially get more toxic, which is exactly what happened in this book. But you shouldn't have to put up with it. It's not your job to keep that person in line. It's just so complicated. But again, I understand why she did what she did, but not telling Ava is the true morally gray issue in this situation, because Ava trusted her and Ava deserved to know the truth about what actually happened. And Ava was kind of blaming herself and didn't know the full explanation of what was going on. That is also, we'll talk about that in a little bit, that is a bit of a plot hole situation with that fraying of the thread thing, but we'll talk about that and things that I didn't like and plot hole situations. Loved the overall mystery. I thought that was really, really fun. It kept a pace going. It kept the mystery going. It was just really good. I love fantasy stories that incorporate a mystery aspect to it. It's so much fun, and it really gets you like knowing who the characters are, because it puts them in situations that you have to learn what they're going to do in this situation, what they're going to do in this situation, and it's just fun. I like mysteries and fantasy wrapped together, so to me that's an easy selling point. I also love that it did throw in a lot of red herrings. It kind of threw a lot at you. At first I was a little like, there's a little too much going on. I'm having a hard time keeping track of all these characters, but once it wrapped up, you really didn't need to know the individual characters or their names, because it more had to do with what they were involved in and less to do with who they were. So I did kind of like that it wrapped up like that, because I was like, oh, okay, I don't have to like painfully remember all these people. Hopefully not. Hopefully none of that comes back in the next one, that I'm like, oh, I don't remember any of these people's names, because there was a lot of people involved in this book. I liked that this author was not afraid to make Thias legitimately the bad guy. I'm kind of torn on this one a little bit, because I kind of wanted that sisterly like drama. I think it was a on one hand, I think it was interesting to make the sister legitimately the bad guy, and still kind of like, to her, in her mind it's morally gray. She didn't actually mean to hurt anybody, and she does seem to be, she's being controlled by supposedly the gods. On the other hand, it feels a little bit like a cop-out, because you make her semi-emotional abusive throughout the story and throughout their past. So it's a very easy person to pick, because you're not that upset that she's actually the bad guy. I think a better twist would have actually been Ava being the bad guy. It wouldn't have made sense. She would have needed to rewrite a couple of sections, but I think it was just too easy to make Thias the bad guy. It made total sense. So that's why I appreciate it. It made a lot of sense. It was still difficult, obviously, for Io, because Io's dealing with all these complicated feelings about her sister, but I still think it was like the easy choice out of everybody available. So that one's kind of, I liked it and I didn't like it at the same time. That one was I am very torn on that. I think that plot twist is going to depend on what is done in the next book. If it's going to stay an easy choice, or she really is being controlled by the gods, and Io kind of has to like come to terms with who her sister is, if her sister is good, if her sister is bad, if her sister has changed and she's not like she used to be. I don't know. It's again, that's a little complicated. It's going to depend what they do in the next book. Speaking of Ava though, I was shocked when she joined Thias. However, it's not that surprising, because Thias told her that Io was the one who pushed her away. So obviously Ava is going to choose Thias over Io in the moment, because what is it, the three bodies, one soul thing, and Io kind of betrayed that. So of course Ava's gonna join Thias, and Ava's very goes with the flow kind of person. So she's gonna go with Thias and potentially help. I don't know 100% what is going to happen there. And then obviously I loved the setting that went along with the storyline, and I love the magic system. I think it's really cool. I do think it needs to be explained more. I think it needs to explain more. I'm going to talk about that more, and things I didn't like or things that need to be tweaked. But I do like it overall. I think it was very interesting. And then the thing that I really liked that like had my mouth on the ground was the manipulation to get Bianca to the Nines, the Muses' house, and then Bianca slaughtering almost all of them. I was like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I am happy that Bianca became a Fury though, and that she's alive. I'm hoping she stays alive. That is my one thing. I'm like, I really hope Bianca stays alive because this Fury thing is actually really, really cool. And all the other ones have died. So I want Bianca to stay alive to see like what the ramifications of someone with that type of whip-like conglomeration of threads is like. I'm very interested about that. I hope she stays alive in the next story, or at least long enough for us to understand more about that. So yeah, I'm just like interested. It's very interesting. So that's all the things that I really, really liked about it. I'm sure there's a lot more that I like, just general plot lines. But we're moving into the things that I didn't like, the things that kept it from being a 4.25. Let's talk about the two things that kept it from being a 4.25. First, I already kind of talked about it. I don't love the twist of the gods being involved. I think it's, again, a little easy, and it can make the next book ridiculous. This is a situation that if you bring all-powerful beings, etc., into a story, it can make the book become a bit absurd and ridiculous. And I'm not super looking forward to that, her confronting the gods. I don't know how I feel about that. I think they could have just stayed separated from the story and it could have been somebody else involved. And yeah, I would have liked that preferably as an ending twist. I thought it was a little almost anticlimactic that she was like, you know who's controlling me, and it turned out to be the gods. And I was like, that's not the ultimate twist that I was looking for, but I'm willing to go with it for now, and we'll see how the next book does it. And then the other major plot point that kept me from giving this a 5-star is the romance. I felt that the romance was the weakest part of this book. I am shocked myself, but I thought it was so weak that it could have just not existed. I liked them fine as just friends. He honestly didn't even need to exist in this book. You could have replaced his role with Ava, and she could have just been working with her sister the whole story, which I think actually would have been more interesting to then have Ava leave at the end. I think it would have been so much more interesting if she had the fate thread, but he was kind of just this like side story kind of thing who she was avoiding, and then in the next book you can kind of bring that relationship in. But this book really, I think it would have been so much cooler if Ava was the person between her and Bianca, and Ava was helping her through, and you could see their relationship very like deepening and the sisterly bond, etc. And then at the end, when Ava finds out that Io's the one who pushed Thias away, that would have been so good. And then Ava choosing Thias, that would have been devastating. That would have been absolutely devastating. So I personally think that Ava should have been that Eddie, what is it? Eddie shouldn't have really been involved in the book at all, except as kind of a side character for now and kind of giving her emotional turmoil a little bit. And I think the sister should have been the one that she was working with the whole time, because it wasn't as much of an emotional slam dunk at the end as it could have been. So that's kind of my personal opinion. I think she should have been with Ava the whole time, and that sister bond and that interesting aspect of it. And then that betrayal at the end. That betrayal at the end would have been everything. Would have been so good. It's kind of my personal opinion on that and the relationship. I just did not feel the connection between her and the lead. I didn't feel it. I wasn't interested in it. So I am curious if I'll feel differently in the next book. I just didn't really care. And that's like the opposite of how I normally feel about books. For me, I'm normally the most invested in the romance in these books. So I'm very surprised that the romance was like a dud for me, and I loved everything else in the story. I feel like that's actually quite impressive, because normally if the romance is bad, I just don't care about the book. Curious what other people thought about the romance and what you think potentially is going to happen in the second book. I do think we could get a better idea of the romance if the second book has an Eddie POV. That's what I kind of want. I feel like what was kind of missing from this book and potentially Eddie's book is the dual POV. I know a lot, that's controversial. That is very controversial. But in romance fantasy. I actually love dual POV. That's why I love Defy the Night. I thought it was so good because you got both like aspects of the story, and it was so interesting, and I knew both characters super well. I feel like the big problem was that I didn't know Edai like at all. I didn't know who he was. I didn't understand his character. I don't know anything about him. I don't know his like I know a little bit of his backstory, but again, there was no emotional punch to his story because I just felt like I didn't know him. It was a bit convoluted. That was another thing I was not a big fan of. I think there was too many otherborn powers discussed. There needed to only be a couple. There was just a lot going on because there was otherborn powers, and then there were subsections within each power, and it just got to be a little bit too much. So that when it was revealed Bianca was a Karisborn, I was kind of like, okay. It needed a compendium or whatever at the beginning. It needed a thing listing out like a lot of fantasy books, like this power does this does this does this. It didn't have that, so there was no way for me to go back. I should have made my own. I said it at one point. I should have made my own. So it took me like quite a while to remember what Karisborn was, even though I think we had a whole story about it. But I was just like, I don't remember what this does. There's too many. I don't remember what this does. So I think that definitely hurt the reveal of Bianca quite a bit because my memory is not the best. So people who have a great memory probably were fine with this. But people who are like me and sometimes have a hard time following along with a lot of information, I needed a compendium. I needed a compendium to be able to go, oh, she's Karisborn, flip to the front. Oh, Karisborn is this. Oh my gosh. That's kind of what I needed for that. So I do kind of hope that's added in the second book as like a little thing at the beginning, like a table or a table of contents at the back where we can look up what does what and what god leads to what, because that's also what's going to be complicated in the next one. If we're doing the gods, we're going to be talking about the gods specific to their powers, so it's just going to be confusing. It's going to be confusing, and I'm not looking forward to that part of it. Oh, and then in my notes I said could have been 100 pages longer. It could have been 100 pages longer. I don't ever say that. I really never say that. It could have been 100 pages longer. I needed backstory of the Fury. I needed backstory of the world. I just needed backstory on everything because I needed more. I needed more from a world that is this, like, it was so different and there's a lot going on that it could have been 100 pages more, specifically understanding the Furies. I feel like the big twist with the Furies would have hit more if I understood them better. I feel like I did not understand them enough to really get the full magnitude of the twist of the Furies basically going crazy and potentially being controlled by the gods, and that's what drove them crazy. So that's kind of like, I really need some backstory and how the gods used to be involved in the world, because it did seem to hint that they at one point were very involved and are no longer. So yeah, that's another aspect of it that I really wanted some more backstory, and I was just not given that. So that also kind of hurt the rating a little bit. And now we're on to the last thing I didn't like, which were some of the plot holes. There were a couple plot holes, probably more than what I caught onto, but when you have any book that has kind of incredibly powerful people, like the Morroborn are so powerful. Like, they can see everything, life threads and these threads leading to people and differences in the type of threads and the strength of them. That is a very powerful thing. You get plot holes because some plot points there has to be like some fraught with danger, etc., but you could probably solve it by looking in the quilt and looking at the threads. So like one of the examples, I immediately was like, what? It was the first time she saw Thias, and she was in the theater and Thias was with Luck and they were talking to each other, and the whole time I was thinking like, how this is like, Thias doesn't actually like him. All she had to do was pop into the quilt and see the connection between the two of them and she would have been fine. That's the thing, like that whole thing never needed to happen because she could have just seen for herself that they were in love. But then none of that would have had, like, none of that inner monologue would have happened, and then she wouldn't have had the chance to do it later. So again, that's a little bit of a plot hole. I don't know if she was just so surprised she didn't think of doing it, but she grew up with this power. Probably her immediate thought would be doing that. She waited too long, in my opinion, to check the relationship between Thias and Luck. as more of a plot point than a actual what would actually happen in reality. And then it seemed like there was a little bit of confusion, at least on my part, about what they could actually do in the quilt, because at some point she talked about how she could tell, number one, she could tell the threads from each other. If she's only holding them, she has to be holding them. She can also tell like where they're leading, which ones kind of are which, because she could always see the home thread, and that's how she was able to fray it. But a big part is like, feel like Io would have seen the thread leading to the gods earlier. That is one question I have. I'm a little confused about that. And then I'm a little confused how Io didn't see that the life thread whip thing was a bunch of threads weaved into one, because she even made the comment that she can tell weaved threads from real threads. So in my head, she would probably be able to tell that it was a bunch of threads weaved into one, right? Like that, I'm a little bit confused on that part. That seems like kind of a big plot hole that we kind of ignored. I don't know. And especially because she had a hold of them quite a few times, and you think she'd be able to see the weave through all the threads. I don't know though. That seemed like something that should have been explained, and how she didn't notice that earlier. Because that would have led right to a Mora-born weaver, which would lead to Thais. So that felt a little bit like a plot hole. Then Ava not seeing Io fraying Thais' home thread. Ava being completely like surprised by the home thread being severed, to me doesn't seem realistic. To me that seems like they would all see it because they can all go on the quilt. To me, Thais would see her home thread was getting frayed and would be like at least cautionary about that. And she does figure that out, but it seems like it took her a while. But I don't know. To me, that seemed like another plot hole, that Ava would have at least seen it and shouldn't have been that surprised, and that Thais would have noticed and potentially have stopped her before it ever happened. So that's another one that I'm like, I don't know. That one's a weird one. Yeah, that's kind of everything that I was unsure of, kind of wanted tweaked in the book, and leading out of that into what I kind of hope for the next book. what I kind of hope for the next book. I do hope the next book does a dual POV. I know a lot of people are not going to agree with me on that one, but I want a dual POV. Kind of hope it's not the gods, or it's like such a small portion of the book. I just don't want it to get weird. I don't want it to get ridiculous. I don't want it to get over powerful kind of thing going on. I don't like that. I want to keep it murder mystery-esque kind of thing going on, which is not what's going to happen. The gods are going to get super involved, and I'm not going to be happy about it. But we're going to see. Again, I'm going to give it a chance. I'm going to give it a chance. Benefit of the doubt that she's going to do it really well, and I'm going to like it. Definitely want more Fury background, just more background in general, and I kind of want some of the plot holes I talked about addressed a little bit, because I'm just, yeah, I don't know about it. I don't know how I feel about it. So anyway, 4.25. I know it sounds like I did not like it, but I actually really like the book. So yeah, I want you guys to talk in the comments about what you thought about the book. Any of the plot holes that I talked about, if you think that I kind of missed something, like if you can explain any of the plot holes, I would love that. I would absolutely love that. That would ease my mind, etc. If you guys thought it was confusing, or you guys kind of followed along really well, what you thought about the story overall, what you thought about the romance. I want to know if I was alone in thinking the romance was kind of underdeveloped to the point that it just really didn't need to move as quickly as it did. I feel like it could have been extended into the second one, and it would have been much more developed. Again, just overall what you thought about it. I don't have that many questions other than plot hole, overall liking of the story, what was your rating, the romance, and what do you think about the twist, about Thais being a part of this, about the gods apparently being a part of this. So I just want to know all your thoughts about it. List all your thoughts, etc. I don't care how long the comment is. I will read the whole thing, put whatever you want down. So yeah, that's everything that I have for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the book. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I did. That's really exciting. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like. We are doing, what are we doing next month? Oh, next month is spooky month. October, we are Vampires of El Norte. That video announcing all the book thing is going to come out this weekend. I just forgot about it. I forgot that I needed to post it. So actually I need to run upstairs and go post that now. Yeah, I had a fun time with this one. I hope I have as good of a time with Vampires of El Norte as I did with this video. And yeah, that's everything I've got for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you're not subscribed yet, because we are doing book clubs every month. Very exciting. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you guys in the next video.